you're stupid enough to walk in front of this at this point. You're on your own. Okay, real quick, our ceremonial speeches, our introductory speeches are going to be Monday. Okay, I have changed the time. I was writing a couple of introductory speeches. One you're going to hear in a couple of minutes. Another one I'm going to be taping and posting for all 4 classes. And I began to realize a 4-minute long introductory speech is really long. People out in the audience are going to be going, get the hell out of the way and let the speaker up there. Okay, so I've cut it back to 2.5 to 3.5 minutes. Okay, 2.5 should be your target. That's a good time for an introductory speech. Okay, but making it 2.5 to 3.5 gives you a target window that will allow you to overlap a little bit. Okay, so everybody understand that? Okay, for introductory speeches, in general terms, shorter is better, but I'm giving you an extra 60 seconds to go deep and not get penalized for it. I will be posting, I forgot to bring it in here, so I don't want to just do it off the top of my head because I just redid it. I will be posting the scoring for it tomorrow. Okay, I believe it's 45 points, right? See, exactly. I had to completely overhaul my scoring just the other day. So let me look, see if I've got it up here. Oh, it's 50 points. So yeah, I'm going to have to completely overhaul what I'm thinking about doing with the points. And I will be posting that. But hey, do your best and get up 50 out of 50, right? That's the goal for everybody. If you get up here and do it well, then cover all those points we talked about, thanking the person who introduced you, giving you, stating who you're going to be introducing, talk about their backgrounds, what they're going to be talking about, and why you should be listening, and then the introduction, and now without further ado, that's all you need to do to get 50. Keeping it within 2.5 and 3.5 minutes, and you get 50 points. Gesture occasionally, make eye contact, you'll be good to go. So anybody have any questions about that?
Just real quick. I know when you said state the purpose, and the 3 things you said was, say the speaker, the compliments, why you should listen to them, and the topic.
And what they're going to be talking about.
That's what you mean by the topic?
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you mean by why they should listen? I kind of get it, but I don't understand fully.
Okay, why people should... with every speech, you should be thinking about why the audience needs to listen and making sure the audience understands that. Okay, so if you're going to get, I'm trying to think, and my only theoretical physicist I know. Okay, let's say Sheldon Cooper's a real person. Okay, if I'm introducing Dr. Sheldon Cooper, why does anybody in this room want to listen to a theoretical physicist? If I hear that a theoretical physicist is getting up there, I'm going like, all right, I got 45 minutes to catch up on my sleep. Okay, you need to tell me why I care. Okay, because you're going to need to build engagement. Okay, does that make sense?
Like their degrees and stuff.
That's their background and qualifications, their degrees and all that. That gives them credibility, but you still need to make sure that their topic is relatable to the audience you're standing in front of. And we're going to talk about audience analysis today, as a matter of fact. Okay? Does anybody have any other questions? Okay. Let me find it. So I will introduce this speaker from this video clip. It's this clip from CBS Sunday Morning. Okay? But this is how I would introduce her. Thanks, Bob. I have the privilege today to introduce our guest speaker, Rebecca Traister. As many of you know, Ms. Traister is a New York Times best-selling author and a writer for New York Magazine and TheCut.com. Ms. Traister's critically acclaimed first book, 2010's Big Girls Don't Cry, The Election That Changed Everything for American Women, was named as one of the year's notable books by the New York Times and was hailed as a new interpretation of the role of gender plays in politics in this country and how a single election shaped the way gender issues are addressed in the United States. Ms. Traister's second book, 2016's All the Single Ladies, Unmarried Women, and the Rise of an Independent Nation, charts the significant shifts in marriage demographics among the women in the United States. Ms. Traister reports that for almost the entire 20th century, the age of a woman's first marriage in this country hovered between 20 and 22 years old. In a very short time, it has risen to 27. The New York Times pointed out that American women who eventually marry are now left with nearly a decade of single adulthood to forge their own paths professionally, romantically, and socially. And this current period feels markedly different than the prior moments when decisions to abstain or delay marriage were intentional actions of feminist protest. The Times further said that of the book that this is an informative and thought-provoking book for everyone, not just the single ladies, who wants to gain a greater understanding of this pivotal moment in the history of the United States. Ms. Traister's current book, Good and Mad, The Revolutionary Power of Women's Anger, was described by Vanity Fair as a hopeful, maddening compendium of righteous feminine anger and the good it can do when wielded efficiently and collectively. Walter Russell Mead of Foreign Affairs magazine has described Ms. Traister as one of the most powerful voices in the new generation of American feminist writers. Ms. Traister's first book won the Ernesta Drinker Ballad Book Prize in 2012. The same year, she received the Making Trouble, Making History Award from the Jewish Women's Archive. With the appointment of Justice Brett Kavanaugh to the U.S. Supreme Court in the news again, Ms. Traister will talk to us today about how the key players in last year's drama were viewed by the press and the public, which will hopefully allow us all to examine the lenses through which we view such events. So please welcome Rebecca Traister. You don't have to applaud. That's okay. Good. Okay? So there's an introductory speech. Anybody have any questions? Was it fairly straightforward and simple? I wrote that in 20 minutes. Okay? This morning, after I got to work. Okay, this is a piece from, short piece from CBS Sunday Morning that aired the week after the Kavanaugh confirmation hearing.
Last Thursday's Supreme Court confirmation hearing was seen by millions and millions of Americans, including author Rebecca Traister.
If you watched the testimony of Christine Blasey Ford and Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh on Thursday, you might have noticed that the two expressed themselves differently.
I am here today not because I want to be. I am terrified.
Blasey Ford, a professor of psychology, spoke carefully and clearly as she told the Senate Judiciary Committee about being assaulted by Kavanaugh back in high school. Blasey Ford's voice was measured and polite. It cracked, but she did not weep, did not yell. She was solicitous, deferential. The story she told was awful. From the alleged assault itself, to being brought forward into a national spotlight against her will, to the hatred she and her family have incurred since landing in that spotlight. She had every reason to be impassioned, angry. But women are taught early that if we express anger, we will not be taken seriously. We will sound childlike, emotional, unhinged, hysterical. And so many of us take care not to express our anger, lest we undercut the very point we want to make. The fury of powerful white men is heard differently in this country. Always has been. We admire the rage of our country's founders. Give me liberty or give me death.
They all gotta start paying their fair share of taxes.
And we're going to Washington, D.C. to drain the swamp.
In 2016, we heard a lot about how skillfully both Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump channeled the fury of their voters.
To improve your lives and make our country stronger. And
Meanwhile, whenever Hillary Clinton spoke too loudly into a microphone, people complained that she was yelling and sounded shrill. It's not just that white men are allowed to be angry and women are not. It's that white men's anger can be used to their benefit.
This confirmation process has become a national disgrace.
And so, when Brett Kavanaugh spoke on his own behalf, he yelled, he wept furious tears, he challenged and berated members of the Judiciary Committee. As I listened, I understood that this approach might well bolster Kavanaugh's case. That's because we reflexively understand the anger of white men, especially when used to convey how unfairly they've been treated, as righteous and correct. So if Brett Kavanaugh is ultimately confirmed to the Supreme Court, remember that he had at hand a tool, a weapon of self-defense that has never been offered to women. He could be angry on his own behalf.
Okay. What y'all think of that? Anybody made uncomfortable by it?
My blood pressure go up, but yeah.
Okay. What else?
She made some good points.
She makes some good points. Okay. No impact on any of you guys.
It didn't bother me because I'm not a woman and I'm not a white man, so.
You know, but again, you know, it would be very easy for her, and it would be very easy for another speaker to replace. You know, how often is, you know, a white man can be angry and it's righteously indignant. A black man becomes angry and we're threatened and it's confrontational. Okay, so it's the same thing. It's just she's talking to a slightly different demographic. Well, a radically different demographic, men and women. They're the, you know, but I mean, it's the same issue. Okay, what else? Do you have your hand up?
A couple things for me. I agree with what you were saying, and just personal things. Every time I see 45 or Kavanaugh run.
Calm down. Let's not get political. Speak to what you saw here, not to the personalities involved.
I feel very uncomfortable when I see those two gentlemen, and I found her to be very truthful and poised and factual in everything she said.
Okay. Other comments? First of all, the one thing I noticed when rewatching it, and again, so the first time I saw this was the Sunday after. I watch CBS. I've been watching CBS Sunday Morning for a lot longer than I want to discuss in public. But the thing about it is, I've always watched it. Some of the pieces grab me, and I'm sitting there with my wife on a Sunday morning drinking my coffee, watching it, and that pops up, and my wife looks at me and goes, "Wow, that's really spot on." Because I've had times when, you know, and she works for the Department of Defense in a very male-dominated, male-oriented culture. And she will sit there, and guys can get all bowed up and get puffed up, and then she will turn around and, you know, start just, you know, give 1/10 of what she just saw, and people will start going, "Barb, calm down, relax. No, this is nothing for you to get stressed out about." And I said, you know, and so she said, "Yeah, that's I think," and I said, "Yeah, clearly it's relevant because some of the things we've already talked about. Men are told to take up space, be large. Women are told to be small, right?" And I said, "So clearly that's a problem." And my wife looked at me and said, "So, you know, in your class, you've got a lot of very powerful women speakers you show, right?" And I went, "Sure." And she goes, "Oh yeah, like who?" And I'm like, and so I was suddenly thrown into an existential crisis because I began to realize I have been saying for years and years, one of the things that I want, especially since I now have 2 adult daughters, one of the things I would like to see is women being more empowered to speak more powerfully. And then I began to realize that I literally had no women speakers anywhere in my class that I was showing as examples. So I have since gone back and corrected that, and I am in the process of correcting that. And one time, just to see if I could do it, I'm going to run a semester of this with nothing but, you know, female speakers on videotape. I don't know that I'm ever going to achieve that because I got some great speeches that I love to show that are male speakers, but we're going to see how that works out overall. Okay, but the point she's making there is quite relevant and truthful, isn't it? Okay, and I'm sure that every woman in this class could attest to the fact that their actions and their emotions are interpreted differently than the men. Okay, and certainly there's also ethnicity involved as well. Okay, so one of the things that I want to do out of this class is to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to see multiple speakers, okay, multiple ethnicities, genders, age groups, all working toward delivering powerful speeches. Okay? Anybody have any questions about that? Okay, so what we're going to talk about today, hopefully it won't take that long because I got another, and my daughter who's going to graduate this semester from Mississippi State is an art major. She has been feeding me, okay, here's another good one. So she's been feeding me the names of people. Like, hopefully we'll get to it today. If not, we'll get to it next week. Valerie Carr, who is a documentarian and a civil rights activist. And she sent me a whole bunch of other ones that we're going to be looking at over, you know, then they're really good. But what we're going to start talking about today is audience analysis. Okay? Remember last week or the week before that, I said one of the things the 3 things you take into consideration when you're picking a topic were, what was first? What was first? When developing the topics for your speech.
Oh, what do you want to talk about?
What you want to talk about. So the first thing you think about is the speaker. What you want to talk about. What is the second thing you want to take into consideration? Okay, that's all part of the speaker.
The nature
The occasion. And what is the third thing you wanted to look at, think about? The audience. Wow. It's almost like a Monday in here. Okay? It's the audience. So the third thing you want to think about is the audience. Now, the audience is a little bit different from the other two because you should know the speaker already, right? You may want to do a little self-examination, but really when somebody comes to you and say, hey, we'd like for you to speak, you should already have a pretty good idea who you are and what your skills and talents are, right? Okay? I'm about to make an entire hybrid class physically ill from motion sickness. Okay, get that over there so I don't have to stand so far back. Okay? But the third thing on the list is the audience. And today we're going to discuss examining the audience. We're going to talk about why you examine the audience, how you do it, and what the impact should be. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is a guy named, who knows who Thomas P. Tip O'Neill is? Anybody in here ever hear of Thomas P. Tip O'Neill?
He was Speaker of the House back in Jimmy Carter time, somewhere around there.
Boom. Everybody give the man a round of applause. He's in like 5 years, he's the first guy that knew details. Thomas P. Tip O'Neill was an American politician. He was in the House of Representatives from 1953 to 1987. And he was the Speaker of the House from 81 to 87. So 77 to 87. He was Speaker of the House for 10 years. During President Carter's term and also during President Reagan's term, during most of President Reagan's time. The great thing about Tip O'Neill was he was diametrically opposed politically to President Reagan. He was the most powerful Democrat in the country. But he and President Reagan on a fairly regular basis got together and just simply had a beer, sat around and talked, socialized with each other, spent time with each other. That way when it came down to setting national policy, they had a conversation that they could engage in. Okay, you can imagine Donald Trump and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez sitting around having a, no you couldn't. Okay, Ted Cruz and any member, and Chuck Schumer, no you couldn't. Okay, because they spent so much time demonizing each other. But Tip O'Neill was one of the last great politicians, I think, from that side of the party, which could reach out to the Republicans and the conservatives and join them in a righteous cause. Tip O'Neill said, in America, all politics are local. What do you think Speaker O'Neill meant when he said that?
All political decisions affect real people.
Okay, that's certainly part of it. All political decisions affect real people. What else? In America, all politics are local.
Foreign policy or domestic policy?
Foreign policies are domestic policies. Okay, again, you're sort of working around it. You're working at the edges. Okay?
That it happens in your backyard, all stuff, all.
Everything happens in your backyard. Or more importantly, for a politician, I've got to show you how my policies affect what's going on in your backyard. Okay? How many of y'all know the two biggest employers in the CSRA? Take a guess. Savannah Riverside. What's the other one? What? No. What? Nope. Well, some of y'all should know it. No. It's across the river. It's in Georgia.
Zeus? Is it Fort Gordon?
Fort Gordon. The two biggest employers in the CSRA, the two biggest economic impacts in the CSRA are the Savannah River Nuclear Site and Fort Gordon. Okay? So if I'm Rick Allen, the member of the U.S. House of Representatives from the Georgia 12th, which takes in everything from Richmond County almost all the way down to Statesboro, and I'm running for re-election, and I'm campaigning on a stronger defense policy, do I want to talk about our military capabilities to project power into the Middle East so that we can teach those Iranians a lesson? No. I'm going to talk about how I've brought down 15,000 new soldiers to Fort Gordon, which is going to bring $1 billion a year into the CSRA's economy. Okay? Do I want to talk about if I'm campaigning here, if I'm Lindsey Graham, okay, and I'm campaigning for re-election for senator, Am I going to talk to you about our new energy needs and the challenges facing the United States in a post-petrochemical world? No. I'm going to talk about how I got a $1 billion grant for the Savannah Riverside. Does everybody understand what I'm talking about? So Tip O'Neill, when he said in America all politics are local, what he was trying to say was you have to make everything real to the individual. Okay? They have to be able to take purchase of it somehow. All right? So if I stand up here, who knows where Vanuatu is? Anybody ever even heard of Vanuatu? Vanuatu is an island nation in the South Pacific Ocean. And if global warming trends continue in the next 15 years, the island nation of Vanuatu will simply cease to exist. It will be flooded, the islands will be washed over, and that entire nation's population will be dispossessed. Okay? How many of y'all really care? I don't care about, really, I care. A couple of people. Okay, let me ask you a question. If I told you if global warming trends continue as they are now, Charleston will flood every year. And it's going to cost the state of South Carolina and you taxpayers $2 billion a year to reinforce the infrastructure of Charleston to keep it from flooding. And you're going to lose college funding. You're going to close technical colleges like Aiken Technical College. You're going to have to cut back on Medicare. You're going to have to cut back on support to indigent children. You're going to increase your state taxes. And all of that's going to happen to you, voters of South Carolina. Does that have more of an impact than what happens in Vanuatu in the South Pacific? Okay, now how do I know that? Well, first of all, we're in South Carolina. I can make a pretty good bet that if I'm in South Carolina, what's going to happen in Charleston and down in the Low Country is going to have a much greater impact on you than what's happening in the South Pacific. Okay? Does everybody understand what I'm saying when Tip O'Neill said, in America, all politics is local? Why that's important. Okay? Because if your audience doesn't buy into what it is you're talking about, okay, if in an informative speech they don't care what you're talking about, if in a problem-solution speech they're not interested in your solution, and certainly in a persuasive speech, if they're not willing to make that change of behavior or change of attitude, you have accomplished absolutely nothing. Okay? Everybody with me? All right? Remember, this goes all the way. This ain't nothing new. Remember Aristotle's model of communication? The last thing was the effect. Okay? You have to have audience buy-in to get that effect. So what we're going to do today is figure out how to get to know, we're going to talk about how you tie the audience in. Okay? And then we're going to talk about some places where you can find information. You guys are all pretty easy. Okay? I've been teaching classes here since 2015. There are certain differences in every class. But generally, the class... You cold? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm like sitting in here and she's like completely inside her shirt and I'm going like, that's got to be a challenge taking notes like that, okay? So what we're going to do today is talk about how to make it real to the people sitting in front of you.
What were you going to share about this class?
This class, you guys are awesome. You guys are more awesomer than all the other classes. Except for my hybrid class, and they're awesome too, okay? They're just as awesomer, okay? Nobody from any of my online classes or hybrid classes ever give me any feedbacks on the lectures on tape. So I always wonder if they're like going, what is that jackass doing now? Okay. So the first thing you have to do is you have to demonstrate relevance to the audience, okay? Okay, remember, even in our ceremonial speech, our introductory speeches, one of the things we're going to do is talk about why the audience should listen to our speaker. So the first thing you have to do is demonstrate relevance. Okay? There's a couple of ways to do it. First of all, you need to demonstrate timeliness. Timeliness. Okay? By timeliness, we have to demonstrate that the knowledge I'm going to give you or the problem I'm going to identify is current now. One of the problems that I think that the global climate change scientists always had was they always put it off in terms of, hey, in 50 years, if we don't make changes, this is going to happen. It was a gradual change. Okay? People that were opposed or did not want to make any adjustments to our behaviors were able to cast it in terms of, hey, listen, if you do this, we're going to have these really sucky changes, and it's going to happen next week. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? If we don't make change, I mean, I remember all the way back into the 1980s, if we don't make changes in how we're burning petrochemicals, we will start losing the ice caps, and the ocean levels will raise in the middle of the 21st century. And everybody was going like, yeah, I'll be dead. Okay. Seriously, that was what some commentators said in reply. You're going to be dead, what do you care? Okay? Not, screw your generation. I'm throwing my, my six-pack holder, just throwing it in the trash, don't care. Okay? Throwing my straws in the trash, don't care. Okay? The other side was going, though, hey, listen, if they pass what they want to, you're going to be paying $6 for a gallon of gas next year. That's going to happen next year. Okay? People were going like, well, next year is closer than 50, 60 years from now, so I'm going to focus on what's right in front of me. Okay? They did not make the case adequately at the time that we have to start making changes today. This is a train you don't stop on a dime. Once this gets going, it's out of control. So that timeliness argument was never something they really were able to figure out. Okay? Everybody understand that? Okay? So, and again, remember, when timeliness, it needs to be relevant. So we have this thing, and you probably got yelled at about it. It was called the collective you. Probably you got yelled about, your English comm teachers talked to you about it, where you say, instead of saying the reader, you say you. Instead of saying, students, you say, you, instead of Aiken County, Aiken Tech students. Everybody understand what I'm saying? You have to avoid the collective you and make sure when you're talking about timeliness and relevance that it deals with the people that are sitting in front of you in the audience. Okay, so timeliness, what constitutes timeliness to you guys? What do y'all see as being timely? 5 years, 10 years, 50 years? 5? Okay.
Like in 5 years, I won't have Amazon rainforests.
Okay. Yeah, somebody asked, everybody knows who Chairman Mao is? He was, the premier leader of the People's Republic of China for about 50 years. He was the leader of the Communist Revolution in China. Somebody asked him what he thought about, in 1976, our bicentennial. Somebody asked him what he thought about the U.S. experiment in democracy. His comment was, it's too early to tell. Okay? Yeah, when you start talking about relevance to different cultures, that 5-year window can extend out to 200 years. Okay? And that's one of the things that we struggle with, especially dealing with other cultures where we're coming in going like, oh, we got a 10-year plan, and they're going like, really? We've got a 300-year plan. Okay? Yeah, the Chinese foreign policy plan is 250 years projected out into the future. Okay? 250, I can't even do that math. All right? All right, so you got to be timeliness. It's got to be you've got to have proximity. Okay? It's got to be relevant in Aiken County. It's got to be relevant in the CSRA. It's got to be relevant in South Carolina and Georgia. It's got to be relevant in the South. It's got to be relevant in the United States. Okay? Proximity means location. If I start talking about the impacts of fertilizer, the overuse of fertilizer has on fish populations, okay, and talk about how it impacts the Finger Lakes up in New York, you guys are probably not going to care. Because you don't live in New York, do you? You live in South Carolina. But if I start talking about how it's having impacts on the fish population out in Clark Hill Reservoir, that gives you proximity. If I start telling you how the Savannah River is getting polluted, that's 8 miles that way. Okay? Everybody understand about proximity? Now, is Vanuatu not a good example of how to talk about global warming? Absolutely it is. Is it the best example for this audience? Possibly not. Especially when I ask you how many people know where Vanuatu is, and nobody in here knew where it was. And that's not insulting your guys' knowledge of geography. Okay? Then finally you have to demonstrate personal impact. What does everybody care about? What does everybody in this room care about? About me, okay? That's sort of the personal part of being personal impact. Care about graduating, but what is universal that everybody, if I wanted to pick one thing that every 99% of Americans care about, what would it be? Money. Dollar, dollar, dollar bill. Okay? Am I wrong? How many of y'all got money just throw around a waist? Dude, if you put your hand up, you're going to be subject to scorn and ridicule, and I'm just going to go, yeah, go ahead. Y'all go ahead. Y'all can take him down. I don't care. Okay? Everybody understand what I'm saying? Personal impact. If I can prove something's going to cost you more money, okay, what's your reaction going to be? Yeah, you'll hear it all the time. You know, they talk about these stupid big projects that they want to work on. You know, government debt is growing now at a rate of almost $1 trillion a year. How many in here can imagine $1 trillion? Senator Everett Dirksen, who's one of the greatest senators, orators out of the 20th century, said one time, great quote. He said, $1 million here, $1 million there, pretty soon you got a couple of bucks. Okay? It gets to the point where we can't wrap our heads around those kind of figures. But if I looked at you and said the federal debt is running up at a rate of $10,000 a year for every single American. $10,000 a year for every single one of you. Is that personal impact? Okay. That's not only $10,000 a year that you can't come up with, but then there's going to be interest payments. Because nobody loans the U.S. government money, interest free. Okay? So not only are you going to be paying off that $10,000 a year, your children are going to be paying off that $10,000. Your grandchildren are going to be paying off that $10,000 a year. So suddenly the federal debt goes from $1 trillion a year to, that's more than I pay for my car. Okay? Every year. For everybody. Forever. Okay? I got really quiet in here. A lot of people are going, I ain't got $10,000. No, you don't. Nobody does. Well, except for him. He's got money to burn. He's out there lighting his cigars with $100 bills. And attended Aiken Technical College. Okay, all right? All right. All right, does everybody understand? So you've got these three things here. Timeliness, proximity, and personal impact. You have to prove those to your audience to get them to listen to you. Now, does all this have to be up front? No, not really. You need to get it in fairly quickly, but you need to work it in all the way through. Okay? And it's always, one of your main points in your introduction, we're going to talk about how to structure your speech next week, is, your tie to the audience can be one of your main, hey, first thing I'm going to tell you is why you care about this. Okay, now a lot of you don't care about Vanuatu, but you probably care about Charleston. Okay? Everybody understand that? Okay, so let's talk about how we go about engaging our audience. So the first thing you need to know about your audience, and this goes for any kind of speech, is what we call their initial disposition. Okay? What do you think initial disposition means?
How they're feeling about this, before you speak.
Yeah, where they are at right now before you speak. That's exactly correct. Okay? All right? Because what you want to do is to find out you have a final disposition. You don't know how to get them here until you know where they are when you start. Okay? If you're going to move them from point A to point B, you have to know where point A is, right? Okay, because if I find out, if I'm coming in here and I'm going to be talking about global warming, and I know for a fact that most of you guys are members of the Sierra Club, Greenpeace, some other kind of environmental group, I know that you're almost all the way where I need you to go to begin with. So I can jump in the middle of the stream and just sort of rush you toward the end. Okay? But if I know that you guys are like coal burners of America, okay, the United Mine Workers, who I have many family members who are still paying dues, okay? If I come in and I'm going to, my final disposition is to ban the use of coal in the United States, and I know that you're with the United, this is a local of the United Mine Workers, your final disposition is not here. Your final disposition is way down here somewhere. Okay? Does everybody understand? So you need to understand where they're at to begin with so you know how to get them where you're going. First thing you need to do is identify some sort of commonality. Okay? Some sort of common ground. So, my job. I was going to say I'm a senator from West Virginia, but I'm not Mitch McConnell, okay? I want to make that clear right now, all right? I'm a senator from West Virginia. I'm going back to my home state to sell my constituents who has the biggest concentration of unemployed former coal miners in the nation. I'm going to sell them on this new environmental act that makes it practically impossible to burn coal in the United States by 2045. What am I going to say to an out-of-work coal miner that is going to establish commonality with me on this idea? What can I tell that out-of-work coal miner? Then that's just, you're done, you're defeated, quit, go home. He said nothing, by the way.
How they can find new jobs with whatever source you get.
How this bill includes funding for new job training. Okay, what else?
Adapt or perish.
Okay, again, you're right. I'm not going to disagree with that's part of it, but that's a very punitive way of dealing with it. I mean, the fact that one of the reasons why Donald Trump was very successful in West Virginia was that he went in there and said, I'm going to bring your jobs back. And the Democrats went in there and said, your jobs ain't coming back. Okay, and what the coal miners all did was, I don't care if you're going to pay for it. I like being a coal miner. And he's telling me what I want to hear. I don't care if it's truthful or not. I'm hearing what I want to hear. Okay? So you've got to come up with a counter message that gives them something they want to hear. New job training is one of them. What else?
Better wages.
Your new jobs will have better wages. Okay, what else?
Improved work conditions.
Improved work conditions. Again, we're all going around this. We're going to get you new jobs, okay? What else can we do besides those new jobs?
Give a bonus.
Give a bonus? I'm going to pay you to vote for this. There you go. Back to dollar bill, okay? What else, though, if we're going to talk about a new environmental law? What can we talk to coal miners in West Virginia? Let's get away from the money piece for a second. What else?
The effects that coal has on the environment, how
Oh.
the environment improves.
Why? I don't care. I'm a coal miner. How do I engage the environment? How does a coal miner engage the environment?
Works in the coal.
Okay, but you're telling him, oh yeah, you're an evil destroyer of the environment? That's a good way to get a vote. What else are you going to say to a coal miner about the environment? What do you know about coal miners? What do coal miners like to do in their off times?
Work with their hands, probably.
Work with their hands, but what do people who live in West Virginia?
Drink.
They like to drink.
So last time.
Okay, might they not like to hunt and fish?
Ah.
Okay. This environmental protection bill, I understand it's going to, your jobs are we're not going to burn coal anymore. We have to deal with that. But this environmental protection bill not only includes new job training, which will give you better paying jobs, with better working conditions. But it's also going to improve the environment. The streams and rivers of West Virginia will clean up so that you can fish like you used to when you were a child. Speaking of the children, and when a politician goes to the children, that's always the quick, easy go-to, folks. Whenever I ask you what else, you should always think, maybe he wants me to say the children, okay? Not only that, but you want this state to look like it did when you were a kid. You want your children to have the same opportunities to hunt and fish and enjoy the great spectacle that is West Virginia. And if we continue down the track we're on, West Virginia will not look like it did when you were a child. West Virginia will have additional coal mining. There'll be more strip mining. You're not going to, and that's for the jobs that you do get, and you're never going to get all those jobs back. But your children will have a better life because of what you're doing. Okay? Does everybody see how I've identified commonality? Find something that you have in common with them. Now, is it always possible? No, I'm not going to tell you every audience it is possible, but you should at least try. Okay? Good example. My in-laws own one of the biggest dairy farms in the state of Vermont. I was up there one time, and PETA came rolling in. People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, okay? And they were on number one, I don't know if y'all know that, cows, when they have calves, some of them are male. And male cows on dairy farms, bulls on dairy farms, not a lot of profit there, okay? So they're usually sold off for veal. And if that appalls you, I'm sorry, okay? The other ones are just, cows are kept and fed and everything. So the PETA people roll in, and I'm standing there with my wife, my father-in-law, and one of my brother-in-laws. Both my father and my brother-in-law are heavily engaged in the dairy industry. And these people roll up, and they've got Massachusetts plates on, and my in-laws are like going, oh, God, massholes. Okay, and I'm like going, okay. So they get out, and they come walking over, and my father-in-law, in his great New England accent, goes, how can I help you? And they said, well, we're from the people for the ethical treatment of animals, and we'd like to talk to you about your cows. And my brother-in-law says, have you ever worked on a dairy farm? Do you know anything about cows? And they're like going, well, and they started hemming and hawing, and then they finally said, hey, listen, we think it would be for the benefit of the cows that we stop dairy farming, okay? Did not make any attempt to establish any sort of commonality, just came out and said, I want to deprive you of your way of making a living, okay? No attempts at commonality, no attempts at introducing themselves, no attempts at any sort of, finding any sort of thing that we could talk about. Okay? I mean, I would have started out and said, hey, listen, you clearly love these cows. These cows are clearly important to you. Okay? How can we improve the condition of your cows? No, they came in and immediately started haranguing my in-laws. Till finally I looked at them and I said, you know something? If we did shut down dairy farming all across the country and these cows were no longer being milked, they ain't going to college. And they went, what? And I said, this is what these cows are bred for. If we just release them, half of them would starve to death in the next 6 months. And they went, and then, well, here, can we leave you some literature? My father-in-law went, no. And they got back in their car, and I think it's the only time in 30 years of marriage my father-in-law looked at me like he appreciated me just at least a little bit. Not that I'm angry. Okay, let me move along. Okay? Find something that gives you unity. Find something you can agree on. Okay? Use personal pronouns. One of the things that always bugs me about politicians, they come in and they start talking about, you need to do this, you need to do this. Okay? The people of South Carolina, why not we?
So is honesty a second to commonality with...
No, honesty should never be second.
Not to bring it up, but with 45 it is, right?
Let's not again.
But I'm not going to go there, but...
Because that's not the only thing that's working in that instance. It's what you're saying is, I understand what you're saying, and we go back to the discussions of ethos and credibility-based ethics, okay?
Yes.
That's not the only factor in play there, okay? You understand what I'm saying?
I do. So honesty is always up here. I think
So
it's-
Donald, and let's deal with this. And if you want to bring up specific examples, like Donald Trump standing up there saying, "I'm one of you, I'm one of the people," and then he's bitching about how much it cost him to heat his penthouse. Okay, and he's in West Virginia when he does that, and the people out there are going like, okay, all right. Use rhetorical questions. But be prepared to move on very quickly. Hey, we all love our children, right? So what we want to do, because you're liable to have somebody, you know, we all love our children, right? And somebody in the back goes, not so much. Okay? Why are you pointing at her?
He's the one that's saying,
Okay? So build that commonality with your audience. Do that up front. That's always a really good attention device. And we'll talk about attention devices next week. Okay? All right. So let's talk about some ways you can analyze your audience. First of all, demographics. What do I mean by demographics? What are some considerations that would be part of demographically analyzing your audience? What? Where they're from?
What are the characteristics of where?
Yeah, but what are those characteristics?
Racial
Ethnicity, income levels, age, employment status, gender, religious affiliation. Okay? All those are relevant. All those are worthwhile. Okay? Now, the key thing you've got to do that you have to pick out of all of that is which ones are important. Okay? As an instructor here at Aiken Technical College, I will tell you, age is not really a driving demographic for me. Okay? Because although I realize that just basically I'm going to be a lot older than nearly everybody in the class. Okay? So I really don't care if you're 38 or 22. I'm still going to basically be teaching the same class. Your age is not going to have that much of an impact on me. Gender, is that going to have an impact on me? Absolutely. I try to make sure that as the, you know, I know the gender makeup of my classes. Okay? Ethnicity, is that going to be an issue for? Absolutely. Okay? All those things. Income levels? Yes. All right? That's why I remember the very first day of class. I don't do statistical analysis, but the very first day of class, remember I asked you, tell me where you're from, tell me what you do for a living. I can pretty much judge your gender and ethnicity in most cases just by looking at you. Okay? All right? And that helps me adjust how I deliver the class. Okay? And it's made a huge change in the way I deliver the class, not on a day-to-day basis and a semester to semester, but if you go back and look at the way that I taught this class back in 1986, it's radically different from the way I do it now. Why? Because people have changed. All the people, you weren't, most of it, how many in here, 1986, who in here is under 33 years of age? None of you people were alive when I started teaching. Okay? And my back just started hurting for some reason. Okay? No, when I started teaching, I was able to stand up there and go, all right, the first part of the speech is the introduction. And that was all I had to do. And I didn't like it very much, but that's the way people expected me to teach. And if I was going into a senior center or something, or if I was going into a demographic, I used to teach a lot of classes in the military where I was dealing with senior NCOs and senior officers, and those people expected to a great extent to still be taught that way. Okay, but now knowing that I'm dealing with millennials, Gen Xers, Gen Y, Gen Z, you guys don't expect me to teach that way. So your age is a huge determiner of how I'm going to teach a class. Okay? So we talk about age, gender, religious affiliation, educational levels. Okay? If you're giving a class, okay, if you're giving a speech, we're going to build a new wing on Aiken Regional Hospital. Okay? I don't know if they are or not. It's just notional. And I am talking to a group of nursing students. at Aiken Technical College, what am I going to talk to them about? I'm going to talk to them about new jobs that are going to be available, what kind of nurses we're going to be hiring. I'm going to be talking about all sorts of things that will impact the nursing employee population of this future wing. Now, what if I'm talking to the Aiken Chamber of Commerce? I'm going to talk about the economic impact it's going to have. I'm going to talk about the number of people that's going to be employed. I'm going to talk about the number of patients that are going to be seen every year. What if I'm talking to a bunch of bankers in New York trying to get financing? I'm going to talk about the economic basis of the county. I'm going to talk about how we're going to get funding for it. I'm going to talk about the dollars involved. Okay? And that's all based on the same thing I'm talking about, the exact same thing, to 3 different audiences that have 3 different sets of concerns. Okay? The next is going to be, we call it psychographic. Okay? Psychographic deals with values, beliefs, attitudes, opinions. You're going to want to look in this at pre-existing notions or opinions about your topic and pre-existing notions about you as an individual, if there are any. Okay? If I'm a police officer and I'm going to talk about law enforcement initiatives here in Aiken County, they may not have a specific opinion about me as an individual, but they may have an opinion about the Aiken County Sheriff's Department. And you need to take those opinions and attitudes into consideration when you're preparing your speech.
What's that thing again? Psychographic?
Psychographic means opinions, beliefs, attitudes, values. Okay? There is situational analysis. And that's exactly what it sounds like. That's asking questions about the situation itself. And again, you've asked a lot of these questions already. Size of the audience, occasion that they're all there for. Okay? How voluntary is it that the people are there? Everybody saw that thing where President Trump went to that factory a couple of weeks ago? And the people were either told, you're going to this rally or you're going to have to take vacation days.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so when you saw the people behind him standing there, they're all going. They weren't there voluntarily, and you could tell by looking at the crowd. Okay? Then finally, there's one we're going to call purpose-oriented. Purpose-oriented. Oriented, yeah, close enough. You can't read it, but it's right. Okay? What about your audience is important to you as a speaker and what you expect to accomplish today? Okay? What about this audience do I need to know to achieve my goals? What are their motivations? What are the emotional state they brought into it? How many of y'all have ever been in one? You've certainly seen it represented on TV on multiple occasions when an aircraft, a commercial air flight has disappeared. Okay, and they get all the people that are waiting for the flight into a room, and you're the guy that's got to go up. And what are the people? What are the motivations, and what is your purpose with those people right there, right then? Everybody, stay calm. We're going to get you as much information as we can. What's their emotional state going to be? Worried, agitated, angry. Okay, all right. And your job is to not exacerbate that. Are you going to get those people not to be worried, agitated, or angry? No, probably not. But what you need to do is you need to give them specific information on how we're going to contact you, how we're going to provide you additional information, and things along those lines. That's purpose-oriented audience analysis. Okay? Now, if I was to tell you which of these is better, shoot.
So does demographics, psychographic, and situational all fall under purpose-oriented?
No, they're all 4 separate. So I could look at this audience. So if I take you as an audience, I call a friend of mine, assuming I have some. And I say, hey, I'd like for you to come talk to my class. Okay, about whatever topic. I will tell you that I got asked to do, George teaches criminal justice here. He wanted me to come over. He said, hey, you were in the intelligence community for 30 years. Can you come over and talk to my Homeland Security class about the intelligence community? Sure. Tell me how old they are. What age ranges are we talking about? What are their occupational backgrounds? Okay? What are their educational backgrounds? What level are they in their class? How close are they to graduating? What do they already know about the intelligence community? Have you guys talked about it in class? What do you think their attitudes are toward it? Okay? How long is class going to be there? Where are they at? And is this a required course, or is this one they're taking voluntarily? Okay? Is this something they're taking as an elective, or is this a requirement for their core courses? And then finally, okay, George, what are they expecting to get out of it? When I walk in there and stand in front of the group, what are they expecting to get out of this class? Okay? So you do all 4 of these. They're not separate or independent. You should be doing all 4.
What do you do if you don't know your audience? I've had to give speeches in Los Angeles and Augusta. Vastly different audiences. I didn't know what they would look like until the day of the speech.
So what I would tell you is the people in LA probably been smoking weed. And anybody from LA, I'm sorry. Okay. You know, what can I tell you is you walk into the room, and if you see a bunch of guys, you should be flexible enough and confident enough in your information. If you walk into the room and everybody's wearing coats and ties, and they're wearing like $3,000 suits, and they've got like these very expensive leather portfolios out, and they're all carrying Mont Blanc pens, okay, you should be able to pick up on those cues and say, okay, these people have got a couple of bucks, they're very focused in what they're wanting to accomplish, so I need to make sure I need to tailor my delivery to a very purposeful, not a lot of frivolities. Don't try to keep their attention. These people are type A personalities, and they're gonna want to be, very straightforward about it. Let's get rid of all the extraneous stuff and get straight down to what I'm here to, the purpose of what I'm here to talk about. Now, if you walk into a room and it's a bunch of, surfer guys, and they're all wearing flip-flops and board shorts and t-shirts, okay? And nobody's got any pads on the table. Nobody's gonna be in there all laid back, okay? Well, then you've got to get them engaged first, okay? You've got to get them, you've got to reach out and build commonality with them and bring them into your conversation.
But a certain aspect has to be on the fly. Because
oh, yeah.
When I'm still kind of new here, and when I gave the speech here in Augusta, the audience was different, and I quickly tried to, what you just said, commonality. I was like, I said to myself, you better get them engaged somehow.
Oh, yeah. And hey, listen, and if you've got the time, there's nothing wrong with standing there and saying, hey, I'm Vic McInnes, and I'm going to talk to you today about, why you should enroll at Aiken Technical College and what Aiken Technical College means to this county. So first of all, let me get a little information about you guys. How many of y'all are high school graduates? Show of hands. Okay, and I'm not asking you to raise your hands right now. This is notional. Okay, how many of y'all have got any college at all? Okay, how many of you have got kids that are 12 years or older? Okay. How many of y'all are currently employed full-time outside of the home where you're earning a paycheck? Okay. All right. And and now you're not only gaining demographic information. Okay. How many of y'all are members of local churches in the area? Okay. And again, I'm not just notional. You don't have to raise your hand. Okay. All right.
Good. Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Because now not only are you getting your information so you can do your audience analysis, but I am so concerned and want to be so in touch with you that I'm going to delay my immediate speech so that I can get more information from you. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay? All right. So, we got all this. We need information. Where are we going to find out information about people? The internet. Thank you for that very specific answer, young man. Where would you go on the internet? I mean, when you're not managing all your monies. Where would you go on the internet? Your audience, where would you find out? You're going to be addressing a group of people you're going to be talking to. You're coming from New York City, and you're flying down, and you're going to be talking about, you're the guy that's going to be financing or helping put together the finance package for the new wing of the Aiken Regional Hospital. And you're going to be talking to the Chamber of Commerce, and you need to know about Aiken County and the residents of Aiken County. Where are you going to find out about it? On the internet. The Aiken County webpage. I presume there's an aiken.county.gov or something like that. Okay? Good. What else?
Library, local library.
Your local library? Okay, what else?
You could have a conversation like your master ceremonies.
You could talk to people. That's always, hey, go to a local coffee shop. Hey, how you doing? Listen, I just came down from New York, and I'm going to be talking about helping build the new hospital. Can I talk to you guys for a couple of minutes? You know what most people are going to say? Sure, absolutely. Because people love to talk about themselves. They love to talk about their town. And if they've got an axe to grind with that hospital, yeah, sit down. I got something to tell you, brother. All right? And then you're going like, okay. So we've got the library, the Aiken County government website. Where else can you go? Where can I go specifically to get tons and tons of demographic information on Aiken County?
Museum?
A museum? No, specifically for demographic information. Where would I go to? What? Cracker Barrel. This is going to be on the internet. Let me restrict things a little bit. Cracker Barrel. There's no Cracker Barrel in Aiken County, is there? You'd have to go across the river to those evil bastards in Georgia to get to a Cracker Barrel. Okay, I'm sorry. I live in Georgia, but yeah, I'm an evil bastard. Okay, all right. Where could you go to get stuff on age, education, religious affiliation, all in one place, all from one site?
Google.
Google is not a site. Google is a search engine.
You could like demographic of Aiken.
Yeah, but where would Google take you to? You guys are killing me.
What is it?
The children.
Where would you go? There's one. I'll give you a better hint. It's a government agency.
The IRS?
Yeah, you're not gonna hack into tax records.
How about the Census Bureau?
The Census Bureau. Thank you. Thank you.
I thought we could get that off Aiken County.
I'm exhausted. No, if you want to go to one spot, the U.S. Census Bureau breaks down every county in the United States. Every single one. And you can go to the U.S. Census Bureau website and find Aiken County, South Carolina. And they won't tell you notionally how many people have college. They will tell you exactly how many people have college degrees, how many people have high school diplomas, how many people did not complete high school, how many people speak English, how many people speak what other languages they speak. They will tell you what the ethnic breakdown of the county is. They will tell you how many people were born outside the United States. They will tell you how many people, there's not a religious affiliation question anymore, but they will give you more information than you can possibly wrap your head around, and it's all in a couple of clicks. Okay, so the U.S. Census Bureau. So where else do you guys, live in your daily lives, where do you get information on your fellow Aiken Countians? Facebook. Okay, what do you look for not just, your Aunt Martha. Who else do you look for on Facebook? Stop. When I say all students are welcome to contribute to class, I'm making an exception, okay? Who would you look for on Facebook? The Census Bureau.
The town website.
I'm seriously contemplating a lot of career choices I've made in my life. What?
Like the town website.
The town, City of Aiken on Facebook.
Yeah.
What else would you look for? Local politicians on Facebook. What else would you look for?
The hospital's page.
The hospital's page. You're not allowed to talk anymore. Okay? But I'll take that as an answer. What else? Where else do you guys get information from?
Facebook groups?
Facebook groups?
Like, no, it's like,
Suggested pages.
no, it's like groups, like, to help your town better.
Like civic groups, like the Kiwanis Club and the Lions Club,
I didn't know it was called.
the American Legion.
Yeah.
Do you guys watch TV?
No.
Yes, I do.
Listen, no, you lie. Okay? Yeah. What about local TV stations? Channel 12 and 26.
Yeah.
I don't know what the other ones is. It's just I know 12 and 26 are owned by the same group, which I consider a way to undermine our American democracy, but we're not going to get into that right now. Okay? All right? Local TV stations, local radio stations. What's the Aiken County newspaper?
The Aiken Standard.
The Aiken Standard. What's the North Augusta newspaper?
Augusta Chronicle.
That's the Augusta Chronicle. It's on the other side of the river. But again, that's it's sort of a regional, well, it's sort of a newspaper. Not really, but yeah.
It's not really a newspaper?
No, it's not. I'll tell you my problems with the Chronicle one day.
I'm trying to get an
Okay?
article in here right now. So I can-
Okay, well, if you get paid, dollar bill. It's all right. The North Augusta Star. Okay, these are all places. And then we've already talked about, hey, go out and talk to people. Publix. Just hang out at Publix in the parking lot late at night. You'll be fine. Okay? So ultimately what you want to do with all that information, okay, is demonstrate that you know the local community. Okay? So you want knowledge and expertise.
Is this under audience?
This is under how you're going to apply all that information. Okay? Not only of your topic, but of the community. Okay? Went to see Steve Martin and Martin Short. Okay? It was okay. Okay, but one of the things they did early on was, hey, it's great to be here in the Bell Auditorium. We were going to, it's nice to be here in a quiet place like Augusta. Nice, quiet, sedate town. We were going to be out in Grovetown, but apparently that's just too raucous out there. Everybody's going like, Grovetown joke. Okay? But they made a local joke so that they could show they were actually aware of where they were. Okay? And when the USO used to come out, they always go, hey, what's the commander's name? And so they always made a joke about the commander to show that they were being relevant to the local community. You guys can get up and say, hey, I was down at Lulu's Barbecue the other day. Everybody's going like, oh, you went to Lulu's? Okay. Pick a restaurant, pick something that shows you've actually spent time understanding it. Okay? You need to establish trustworthiness. Because these people don't know you. Okay? They may have never met you before. When you go to talk to that group in LA, they never saw you before. Okay? You're just coming in, so you need to establish the fact that you're trustworthy. What's a great way to establish trustworthiness? Eye contact. Okay, all those nonverbal things we talked about, right? If you're standing up here saying, listen, you're going to need to trust me. Okay? What does that say? I am lying like a cheap rug. Okay? All right? Everybody understand that? Nonverbals are a great way to establish trustworthiness. When somebody asks you a question, if you take a step toward them to show that you're engaging them and you're not afraid of the questions, okay? It's a great way to establish trustworthiness. All right? And then finally, you need to be personable. It means you need to show you have a personality. You need to show that that you're a human being. All right? One of the great delineators of the 2016 presidential election was Donald Trump was just entertaining as hell to watch. I mean, the guy was just like listening to Howard Stern or some shock jock. What the hell is this guy going to say today? And so you would tune in and listen to it. Hillary Clinton, you knew what you were getting. I mean, she may have been way smarter. She may have been much more better informed. She may have been more up on policy. But you knew what you were getting with Hillary Clinton, and it was going to be a solid, boring political speech. Donald Trump, don't tell him what that guy's going to say today. He was more personal. So people had a tendency to be attracted to him.
There was one time he did a show for a debate, and there were two debates going on at the same time. They showed his empty panel rather than the
Yeah.
And it was just like, all right, well, that's cool.
Okay? So what questions do you have about audience analysis? And remember, you're going to use all of this to change you're not going to change maybe your core message, but if I'm going to be, again, if we're building a new wing on Aiken Regional Hospital, I'm going to be talking to the nursing students about how many people we're going to be hiring. I'm going to be talking about the Chamber of Commerce about how much money it's going to be bringing into the community. And I'm talking to bankers in New York about what our payment schedule is going to be and where that money is going to come from. Same topic, whole different supporting evidence, different message, different organization, Okay? And always, always. When does audience adaptation end or audience analysis end? When does it end?
The conclusion of your speech.
Conclusion of your speech. Because remember, feedback should be part of audience analysis. Okay? Does everybody understand that core basic thing? If you get up here and you're giving a speech that to the class, I mean, it happens all the time. I come in here and I talk to you guys. Well, more Tuesdays, Thursdays, because I see them all the time. The hybrid class is a little weird, not in a bad way, okay? But when I talk to the morning class on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the morning class is usually, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, and they're very engaged. When I go into the afternoon class, right after lunch, I go from being able to say, okay, the first thing we want to talk about is demographics. And they're like giving it to me, and I go into the second class, and I'm in the afternoon class right after lunch, and I'm like, demographics! Just to keep people awake. Okay? And people are going to go, hey, how's your classes going? Mr. Kid, run up and down the halls, screaming like an idiot. Okay? Does everybody understand that audience analysis continues? And it even goes on after the speech. Okay? It should never really end. Because after the speech, you should walk up to whoever invited you and go, hey, how do you think that went? Did I seem to make an impact? Can I call you in a couple of days? So audience analysis is an ongoing process because the things you learn from a speech you gave today, you'll be applying next week to the speech you give then. Okay? So audience analysis is an ongoing process. Okay, questions? Okay, I said I was going to get you out of here early. I did not know Census Bureau was going to take us 5 minutes. Okay? So you're going to get about 2 or 3 minutes early before you take off. Does anybody have any questions about the ceremonial speeches on Monday? 2.5 minutes. I will post how I'm going to grade it. Probably today, tomorrow at the latest. Shouldn't make a whole lot of difference, but yeah.
You can have or should have written stuff.
Yes, and you'll be using the lectern for this.
Okay. You said you could read it like a manuscript, right?
You can if you want to, yes. But remember, you're still going to be graded on eye contact, gestures, your vocal delivery, and all that good stuff.
Do we need an outline?
Do you need an outline? You do not. But again, appropriateness standards will be maintained. So if you get up there and go, this is the best effing guy I ever met, you're out. Okay? All right?
Do we have to use, I don't like using lectern. I just want to.
You have to use the lectern. Because as clearly we demonstrated in class the other day, using the lectern is not as easy as some people thought. Because, a lot of people did not take that half a step back. And so they were very constrained in the only thing they could do with their hands. Because if you're too close, ow, that hurt. You can't gesture. Okay? Other questions? Okay, everybody hold on for a second. We still got a question. You can have whatever you want. In this case, you can have an 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper. You can have note cards. This one is I'm really kind of flexible because I am allowing you to use the lectern. Because when you do a ceremonial speech, and an introductory speech is a type of that, you're almost always going to have a lectern or a podium to speak from. And I want you to give you 2 opportunities to experience that. Okay? All right, if you want feedback on your manuscript reading, I need everybody to do this anyway. I need everybody to fairly quickly get up and get out. Have a good weekend. If you want to get feedback, line up.